What's going on, Freight Skills? In this video, we are talking LTL freight. That's less than truckload freight. It is a popular niche of freight that a lot of freight brokers want to get into, so I thought I would do a video teaching you about how it works, how to move it, and what could go wrong. So before we get into it, make sure you like, subscribe to this video. Make sure you leave a comment down below if you have any more questions about LTL freight. Hopefully we cover everything for you by the end of this video, but if I don't, again, just leave a comment. I'm very responsive. I answer comments all day. Love to hear from you of where you're struggling and where you can use more help. All right, so make sure you use that comment section. Now, as far as LTL freight, let's talk a little bit about what it is and how to break into it and how it works. So LTL freight stands for less than truckload freight. It is a form of dry van. You also might hear this referred to as a partial shipment. Now, while they move in the same vehicle, right, a dry van, there are a lot of differences between how LTL moves versus how regular truckloads move. An LTL shipment can be classified as a shipment of between 1 and about 12 pallets, right? Anytime you start getting over 12 pallets, you start to get into the territory of being a full truckload. So just for the sake of this video, we're going to assume that LTL is anything under about 12 pallets. I mean, I've seen some 14 pallets, but at the end, the cost of moving an LTL shipment versus a full truckload starts to get not worth it, right? So LTL works like this. There are a network of carriers. They're known as common carriers, and they have a huge network of trucks, sort of like FedEx, UPS, and parcel carriers all around the United States. When an LTL shipment is booked, a truck will go and pick up the LTL shipment, and this might be for 2 or 3 pallets. And now in any given day, that truck will visit 5, 10, maybe even 15 pickup locations to pick up a few pallets. And what they will do is they will bring these pallets back to a consolidation hub. Now these hubs are located in major cities and major parts of different regions. There might be a hub in Philadelphia for the Northeast, or Newark, New Jersey for the Northeast. There might be a hub in Houston, Texas for the Southwest, in Kansas, in California, right? There's hubs all over the place. And how LTL works is trucks will pick up these small pallet pickups from shippers. They'll bring them back to this hub where it is then distributed to more hubs. And these hubs will then transport the freight to their final destination on an LTL delivery, right? We can already see how this is very different than handling a dedicated one-stop truckload, right? Rather than just one truck picking up a load and bringing it somewhere else and then being done with the shipment, we are handling the freight with multiple points. You have one truck, one hub, another truck to the next hub, another hub, and then another truck to the final destination. And depending on where it is actually delivering, it could actually be put in more hubs and more trucks, right? You never really know with an LTL carrier. The reason that LTL is so different from truckloads is because of the way that the rates work. Rather than being billed per mile like regular truckloads are, LTL, you can expect to pay rates on a per pallet rate. The pallet rate is based on a few different factors. Number one is, where is it going? If the pallet is going from New Jersey to California, it is probably going to be a little bit more expensive than something going from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, which is one state over. The second thing that pallet rates are based off of is something called class. And this is something where a lot of brokers mess up because it can create a lot of problems with LTL carriers if you don't know how to class your shipments properly. Class is something that is based off of density. So let's think about why this is important. When you're putting a bunch of pallets of different commodities onto a truck, heavier shipments are going to cost more for the truck to move. For example, if you're picking up 2 LTL shipments and one of those shipments is 3 pallets of feathers and the other shipment is a half a pallet of gold, which shipment do you think is going to cause more wear and tear on the truck? The answer is the gold, because the gold is very dense and heavy and it takes up a lot of resources to move it, right? It's a lot of gasoline, it's a lot of wear and tear on the tires, the truck. 1 pallet of gold will cost more to move than 3 pallets of feathers. Say on the other hand, you have 10 pallets of feathers and 1 pallet of maybe like a home gym set that weighs like, 2,000-3,000 pounds. Now you're in a situation where, sure, the feathers are very light, but they're taking up over half the truck. And yes, you have a pallet of weightlifting equipment that's extremely heavy, but that's only taking up 1 pallet space, and it's contributing so much to the max weight limit. So you can see how complicated things get when you're quoting LTL stuff. This is why rates are so all over the place with carriers. You can't really quote LTL if you don't understand how that works, right? Because you can have a shipment with a lot of pallets and think, oh, it's gonna be cheap, it's very light. But it's more expensive than 1 pallet of something very heavy. Or you could have the opposite. It's really, really confusing. Fortunately for us freight brokers, common carriers have this down to a science, and all you have to do is tell them, I have this many pallets going to this location, here's the freight class, here's the weight, and they spit you a quote out. So you have to understand that LTL freight works a lot different than truckload freight, mostly because of the rate. Now there are a few more things that make it a little bit different than truckload freight, and the primary difference is going to be how pickups work. With a dedicated truckload, you just make a phone call to the driver or the dispatcher, the driver goes in, picks it up, and then leaves. Since LTL carriers, and we talked about this, have between 8 and 15 stops per day, they have to go by a strict schedule. This means that if there's appointments with your shippers, if there's time limits, maybe they have to hire a crew to load the truck, there are different requirements. That LTL shipper is going to have a very hard time picking up the freight. They're gonna have to make extra phone calls to make appointments. They're gonna have to coordinate their schedule between all their other pickups. So because of this reason, scheduling an LTL shipment is a lot more difficult because not only is the driver relying on your information, the driver needs to take in information from maybe 10 and 20 more customers just like you that need their freight moved. So that's another complication that comes with moving LTL freight. There are 2 primary ways to move LTL freight, so let's talk about those for a little bit. Number 1 is, like I've been talking about, is using a common carrier. These common carriers do LTL freight, that's all they know, it's all they do. They do an amazing job at it. Some of these carriers include Estes, YRC, Old Dominion, Forward Air, R&L carriers. The list goes on and on. There are many carriers and they all have strengths and weaknesses. Some may be very good at hazmat. Others may be good at refrigerated LTL. Some may just have a certain region that they're really strong in. So it's very important, if you are getting into the LTL game, that you sign up with contracts with multiple carriers so that you can shop multiple rates to give competitive pricing to your customers. The second way that you can move an LTL shipment is with a dedicated carrier who allocates his truck for a partial shipment. Now, if you use a load board, my favorite load board is DAT, you can post a load as a partial shipment. And what this does is it allows the truck to tell you, hey, I'm going this direction, but I'm picking up a few loads. You're not booking my entire truck. There are 3 customers that I'm picking up before you. This will help you get a lower rate on the shipment. It'll help you get the freight where it needs to go. But the downside here is that you don't know when your freight is going to get delivered because you technically have no say over where this truck is stopping off at, when this truck is picking up, when this truck is leaving. A carrier might take your partial load and sit and wait in that city until they fill their truck up with other partial loads going the same direction. So in my experience, I do not recommend booking your partial shipments on a truckload carrier's truck. A lot can go wrong. I'll talk about that in another video, but it's just not really recommended, and the odds of something going wrong are a lot higher than if you were to use a common carrier. So now that we know where we find the carriers to do this freight, where do we find this freight? Where is LTL Freight hiding? Where do I find it? Who do I call? The good news is LTL Freight is all over the place. LTL Freight goes into Amazon warehouses. It comes out of wholesale distribution centers. LTL Freight is shipped out by manufacturers for raw materials. There are tons and tons of companies that are shipping LTL freight on a daily basis. And the best place to find it is from the current customers you're already serving. These same customers that ship truckload freight are probably shipping some kind of form of LTL freight. The issue is, if they are booking these loads directly with carriers, there is not a lot of margin for you to compete. I actually wasn't planning on talking about this, but let's talk about how a broker can add value to a shipper doing LTL, right? Because like I just said, there's nothing stopping a shipper from going direct to an LTL carrier. But where is the value that a broker can provide? And that value comes in knowing the ins and outs of LTL and helping them coordinate this. Let me give you some examples. Brokers should be well versed in handling freight claims. Since LTL is handled by many hands, right? There are a lot of steps to an LTL transaction. It's very common that pallets break, drums get punctured, bags rip, and it's very valuable to have a freight broker behind you who knows how to handle the claims process and can help you get that money back, right? So that's one way that a broker can add value to a shipper. You can call a shipper and say, I know you're booking your LTL direct with so-and-so, but how many times have you had the situation where you've had a claim and you haven't really known what to do with it? They'll tell you, oh, all the time, we have pallet trip. Well, I'm very well versed in claims. I'm a freight broker and I handle 5 to 10 claims every single quarter. I'd love the opportunity to help you manage your LTL so that when something bad happens, I can step in and make sure you get the money back that you deserve. That's one way. Number two is classing freight. A lot of shippers have no idea how to class freight, and they wind up paying tons and tons of more money than they should be for their shipments. So you can call a shipper and you can say, look, I know you're booking your LTL freight with so-and-so, but how many situations have come up in the past where you've had your freight reclassed and paid a lot more than you thought you were going to pay? They'll say, oh, well, all the time. And this can be very pricey, by the way. Then you can then say, look, I'm a freight broker. I have a lot of contacts at these LTL carriers. I can do a really good job of making sure that your shipments that go out are classed properly, so that you never, ever, ever have to see a surprise bill again, because I know exactly how it feels to receive a bill for more than you thought you were going to pay. It's really frustrating. I want to solve that problem for you. Easy as that. Those are two ways that a broker can add value to a shipper who's going direct to a carrier, right? So, you know, there really is no excuses for not being able to add value to shippers. A lot of shippers will think that they know it all and that they can handle everything on their own. But there is always something that you as a broker who does freight all day, every single day, can step in and add a little bit of additional value to a shipper's supply chain. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some insight into how LTL works, how you can start moving it. We talked about how to find carriers, how LTL works, where to find the shippers, and how you as a broker can provide value to these shippers so that you can get more business from them and they can trust you with their freight. And now, as always, if you enjoyed this video, if you got anything out of it, if you learned anything about LTL, the first thing I want you to do, comment down below. Let me know what you learned about LTL that you didn't know before. Commenting does not just help me get this message to more people, but it helps you because it helps you retain the important points that you picked up from this video, right? Like if you leave a comment right now, you're gonna be able to come back and say, oh, wait a minute, I remember this about LTL. I left that comment on Lewis's video and I did a nice thing for him because he did a great thing for me. So make sure you leave a comment down below of what you learned about LTL. Number two, like, follow, and subscribe to this channel. You don't want to miss any more of the freight broker content that I have coming your way in the next few weeks and months. So with that, as always, I want to invite you to join my free group. It's called the Freight Broker Network. The link is right down below. Just click that link, enter your info, and invite yourself into my Freight Broker private community. It's the most positive and encouraging and uplifting freight broker group that you'll find on the internet today. Hands down. Invite yourself in. I'll personally approve your invitation. Introduce yourself and let me know how I can help you move more freight. I hope this video helped, and until the next one, I'll see you soon.